For some reason, I was muted. I apologize for that. I don't know why. It muted me coming back in. But good morning to most, good afternoon to others, and good evening to our viewing audience across the pond. My name is Jason Miles. Welcome to another episode of this Revolution Podcast. If you are new to the channel and enjoy what you're hearing, please feel free to hit a like and subscribe button as a passive gesture that goes a very long way. If you are a returning listener, subscriber, or one of the very rare and awesome patrons, so glad to have you back. You are the fuel and the TLR engine that keeps us chugging along. As many of the patrons know, last or 2 months ago, we launched the Crisis Papers. It kind of, sorta. I said kind of, sorta, because I wanted it to be bi-weekly. What? Kind of, sorta, bi-weekly series of essays, mainly by moi, and they are free to all patrons. And depending on your tier, we have a magazine formatted version that is free as well. If you are not a patron and aren't with the whole Patreon thing and you want to support and read Crisis Papers, but that's easy. Wherever you're watching or listening to the show, there is a link in the description to them. The 4th edition is up. Let me pull up. There we go right here. Bam! One of Us is the Killer, Celebrity, Cancel Culture, and the Illusion of Politics, Neoliberal Realism. That is up right now. Again, wherever you are watching or listening to the show, there are links in the description. Also, all of the video essays will be hosted on Means TV moving forward, as well as the new and upcoming video essays. If you would like a 20% off monthly or a discount for a monthly subscription to Means TV, if you use the discount code "This is Revolution," all one word, in all caps, you can get 20% off for a monthly subscription to Means TV. Pretty stoked about that. Are you guys stoked about that? See if we get new people in the chat after the Means TV thing. That being said, let me bring in my co-host for today's show. He is my homie, my dog. He is the man of the Mau Mau Hour. He is the Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles.
How are you?
Well, all right.
Is your microphone on? I think your microphone, you can make sure it's on the settings.
It's on.
You're very low.
Hello, hello.
I can hear you. It's just really low. So just talk real loud, like you usually do.
Okay. I'll do that.
Are you ready to talk about the rise of the far right, Pascal?
I am ready.
Does it seem like it's in like cycles? Like we were talking about the far right rise in 2016 quite a bit, because there was, right? Bolsonaro in Brazil, Trump, Brexit, Duterte in the Philippines, Orban. Is this a cycle or is this continuing in your opinion?
It's the ultimate failure of liberalism to deal with the far right.
Well, that is part of one of the things we're going to be talking about. Today on TIR, we're going to delve into one of the most pressing issues shaping our world today. In this episode, we confront a phenomenon that is sending ripples across the globe, the alarming rise of far-right movements. From Germany's Alternative for Germany, the AfD party, securing unprecedented victories, to similar surges in France and Italy, we are witnessing a seismic shift in the political landscape. What factors are fueling this resurgence? How are xenophobic sentiments being manipulated? And crucially, what lessons can be drawn from these developments, especially in relation to the United States? Join us and our friends from across the pond in Germany as we explore more. Please welcome, coming all the way live from Deutschland, the homies from 99 Zu Eins.
Party on. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. How are you guys
What's
doing?
up, guys? Pleasure being back on the show. Been a while.
It's a pleasure seeing the upgrade in your guys' set. That's what the pleasure is. I think things are things going better for you guys?
Yeah, that's it's a continuous growth, but it's not like going crazy. But at least we can cover our expenses now with some of the expenses, let's say, with the money we get from our beloved patrons. So that's cool.
I mean,
We also got an honorable mention in the internal security paper in Germany.
Did you really?
Yeah, there is this thing called Verfassungsschutz. It's like an internal secret service.
I would say it's like a
constitutional service.
It's like the NSA a little bit.
Yeah, like an internal NSA thing, and they have a yearly report on groups they need to observe. And we are not one of the to be observed groups, but we are mentioned as
I said, honorable mention.
Honorable mention of
like
of that list,
might
basically
make the cut if around longer.
Yeah, or if bigger. Yeah, exactly.
This is the look. I love the fact you guys are matching. I love the set. I love it all. But I do. Let's talk a little bit about.
Do you know what it is in the back?
Is that just your wall?
No.
Yeah, that's a wall. That's a wall. But it's that's actually Marx.
That's Das
Marx's
Kapital.
Capital on here.
Volume 1, 2, 3.
Oh, Pascal,
Yeah.
did you keep that? I mean, we
No, that's interesting.
You can't read it, but yeah, you can actually. If you go there, you can.
Yeah. I think it's the Wertform somewhere, like the value theory.
Value. Yeah, the value theory is there in the middle. Yeah, exactly.
Can you explain real quick before we even get into some of these questions? Because I'm sure some of our viewers in different parts of the world aren't familiar with what's going on in Germany right now. I was wondering originally when I was coming up with questions, how far we should go back. Do we talk about the Ottoman Empire a little bit? Talk about Bismarck. But I think for a lot of Americans, especially those that didn't grow up in the Cold War and realized that there was two Germanys at one point in time, that dissection is kind of really important for understanding this far right growth. Can you guys give us a real quick elementary school history lesson on East and West Germany?
History of Germany. I will definitely use that feature.
Oh, look at
and let
that!
him talk.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go. If I have some minor fuck ups in the facts, please pardon me. I'm not a historian. But
I think First World War. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the. I would start with the Second Reich of Germany, which is in 1871. Which was the peak of Bismarck's policies trying to reunify a German empire under the guise of the Prussian emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And that was William I. And while this worked out worked out for a couple of years for Otto von Bismarck, he had a serious run-in with the son of William I, William II, who was like a military nut. He was like could say the John Milius of emperors in Germany, because he also was not fit for service, but nevertheless completely infatuated, especially with the marine and naval services.
Giving names to your kids was so much easier back then. Yeah, he's like the second.
That's why I married a Greek lady, because there you just take the grandfather and the grandmother's name.
Okay.
Done. It's easy. That's why everyone is called Yorgos.
I didn't know.
No, and it was already it was also the start of how can I say, the nation state as an idea. Even the coming together of Germany was already something that was advocated for also by poets, etc., and the first wave of modern German nationalism. And William II and Bismarck didn't get along too well, because Bismarck wanted to sustain the influence of Germany within Europe, be very, very wise with how far he stretches the efforts. He was not, how can I say, against war in any which way. He fought dozens of them and always said that history is written in blood and iron. But he was very clever, and you have to admit that, very clever in keeping it on a level that is sustainable. And William II just wanted to he wanted more and more and more and more, and he alienated and aggravated the other empires around him. And I cannot say why exactly that is, but there was an assassination of a very high-ranking aristocrat, Erzherzog, in Sarajevo by a Serbian militant. He shot them. He shot him, and the Austrians were still very allied with Germany. Then said, like, okay, we're going to give you an ultimatum, and if you stick to it, we might not declare war. And one point in that ultimatum was actually, we will get insight into your internal bureaucracy and diplomacy. And everybody was like, yeah, that's just a trading point, like, so that they take the other stuff, because that was the only point that the Serbians rejected. And funnily enough, the first declaration of war was then not Austria-Serbia, which kind of was to be expected, but it was actually Germany-Russia. We're like, yeah, great, we're gonna have a war. Let's start. Like, let's get in early. This is also the reason why after the war went to shit in 1918, especially for Germany, they got the single responsibility in an early international court. It was like, yeah, Germany, it's your fault, and they were forced to disband their military. They were forced to give away a lot of their regions, which made especially veterans pretty pissed, because they came back from a war that they gave a lot in, and now Germany is like this insignificant like wart on Europe's ass. And
I've never heard it put so. Just the word so beautifully. I've never.
Yeah, that's Daniel. Yeah, it's basically that kind of shame of losing the war, but also the amount of punishment they took for it in terms of reparations, in terms of loss of sovereignty even over their own country, was really like the basis on which Nazism grew in the first place, right?
We could. I can talk about it, but we shouldn't, because it's
we have a more make a couple of steps.
I make a couple of steps. Okay. This how can I say, this shaming or this situation that Germany was objectively in, as like, really, this is like a country that was on purpose put into its place. That was like the main talking point of the German nationalists back then. Out of all, how can I say, like, in the spectrum of German like ultra nationalism, and one of them was National Socialism. National Socialism was actually banned for a couple of years after they tried a coup d'etat in 1924, I think, which failed miserably. But they, even during the trial, they said Hitler's actually a very decent German human being. He just kind of violated the agreement that only the state is allowed to use force, and
kind of like Trump.
Yeah, a little bit like this. So he got a so-called honorable imprisonment, where he then what was it called, dictated, or like if you tell someone what to write, he dictated Mein Kampf to I think Rudolf Hess. This is why it reads like rambling, because he was like actually rambling, and somebody was like like just trying to type it down.
I hate people say it's such a good book. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not. But it's actually I think
it's an important book to understand the ideology, though. So I mean, it's really a bad book, and it's full of mistakes and errors and nonsense and crazy delusions. But it's really central. It's really a central document depicting Nazism and what drove them. Like what are the pains that they saw, and how did they want to address these pains?
Actually, we can already start with the far right in Germany now, because there's a common denominator. Because what Hitler actually complained about was not necessary. He complained about the Jews, but not because he didn't like Jews. They were not the purpose of his policies, but they were in his way. And his main idea and his main goal, as with all fascists, was to absolutely guarantee, even by force if necessary, stitching all liberal freedom, to get the state and the nation state to succeed, to be to be in power, to be in charge, to have like its place in the competition, in the international competition, to have to gain momentum and to be in an advantageful place. For Germany, that was simply not possible with the punishments they got from the First World War. So he didn't even need to open doors with the Germans there, because they were like, oh, this is a shameful state, and he just played right along with that sentiment, which is actually also a sentiment that a lot of the liberals were playing along with, because like, oh, we need to make sure that things go better for the Germans. He was like, yeah, but we need to use force to do that. Yeah, and then in 1933, he was elected as part of a minority government, which is very important because he did not get the majority vote. He got a minority vote, and Freiherr von Papen told him to form a government because it was either him or some left-wing coalition, which they didn't like. In the early days of that minority government, some anarchists burned like they say it was an anarchist. It's sometimes under debate. Or burnt down the Reichstag.
What do you guys think? Insider knowledge.
Actually, I don't care.
The result. I mean, what's important is it's just like 9/11, right? So you can be like truther about this and have many evidence that I don't know, somebody brought the buildings down or somebody else flew the airplanes, but in the end, what matters is how that event actually played out in the coming history, in the following history, and it's just like. No need to debate this. This narrative is set by power. It's not set by truth or fact. It's like this.
Like no matter who burned it down, they used that to say, okay, democracy is too weak to protect itself from international Jewry, Bolshevism, anarchism, and all the bad things that are going on that are keeping Germany from being successful. So they like pumped the brakes on liberal freedoms. So there was no freedom on the press anymore. It was like it's similar to like. Germany, we have the Notstandsgesetze, which is also something that it still exists in democratic Germany. It's like it's state of emergency. They declared a state of emergency. Said, okay, now it's us. We're gonna rule this, and we're gonna rule it with an iron fist. Then a little bit later, 2 years later, Hitler, through the Night of the Long Knives, got rid of the internal opposition, the National Bolsheviks, etc., around Strasser and also his close friend Ernst Röhm. And this was also the rise to power for the SS, which then is like the Third Reich as we know it by stereotype, guys in black uniforms being pretty fucking nasty. And that starts, or that like really takes off in 1936. Already very early on, Hitler said we have to be ready for war in 5 years. So that was also pretty well known and common knowledge that he was intent on taking back spaces or in other spaces that he seemed important for the rise and success of Germany. First, he got he closed the connection with Austria, which was already against all treaties. That's like, I'm going to take Austria, and Austria really, why not? Like he seems like a rat dude, which is it's a big Austrian myth that they were forced to in this coalition, but yeah, actually they were not. Then he did the same with the Czech Republic, who was not as fond of it as the Austrians were, and everyone was like, maybe that's the last country we let him take by force, but kind of peacefully. And when he played the same thing with Poland to take back the Danziger sector, that was then when the shit really hit the fan, and the rest of Europe said, like, I think we have a superpower in the rise, and that is not supposed to happen. And that's the Second World War. And when the American empire saw their hegemony threatened by the Japanese, they chipped in after Pearl Harbor, say like, maybe we should kind of like make sure that things go according to our plan as well. And that and the fight back of the Soviet Union brought the fall of the German Third Reich Empire in 1945. So now it's very important because you already said like two Germanys. I'm rambling. No?
No, I think this is very important. Again, I think this is very important because as basic as this history may seem to you guys, because of, I would say, 30 years of History Channel programming on our American minds, coupled with poor public school education, a lot of this is unknown information. So this is very, I'm not even trying to be funny, I'm being very serious.
Okay, then I will continue.
Yeah.
The coalition of Western, also like i.e. capitalist forces, was France, England, America. Then latched on. They came from like D-Day, which Americans are hugely proud of. Like then they come, and from the east we had the communist bloc, the Soviet Union, also being really really pissed for the breaking of a non-aggression pact. They were on fire.
Yeah, and lost like, I don't know, dozens of millions of people.
Out of the 60 million people that died in the Second World War, 24 million of them were Soviets. Like a third of the fatalities of the Second World War was Soviets.
Wow.
I mean, just let that sink in, and then ask yourself why they were that pissed.
Yeah.
And they took actually Berlin. So there's this very, very famous a picture of two Red Army soldiers waving the hammer and sickle flag. I always get very romantic when I see that on the Bundestag or the Reichstag in Germany. Very, very iconic picture. And so they had the Soviets had control of Eastern Germany. The rest of Germany was divided among Americans, English, and the French. And in Berlin itself, there was also a mixture. Like East Berlin was also managed by the Soviet Union, and Western Berlin was managed by a coalition of French, British, and the American. And when they talked about how they're going to manage Europe after the war, they came to a major disagreement. So they were like, do you think capitalism and communism is kind of compatible? And they were like, probably not. So the power struggle between the two blocs became imminent, and it was clear that they either tear Germany apart or they're going to have another war. So that's what they did. They tore Germany into two pieces. We had Eastern Germany, which was ruled ruled by Soviets, and we had Western Germany. Berlin itself also was torn apart, like really, really crassly, because that really meant like inside of the Soviet Union, not occupied, but administered territory, there is like a small enclave of like Western Allied forces, which was West Berlin, which after several negotiations fell through, and the Cold War became like more of a thing. They even decided to set up a very strict border. So there was the so-called Iron Curtain. I don't know if that's a familiar term.
The wall.
I haven't heard the Iron Curtain in years, but
yeah, the Iron Curtain is actually a very, very strict border between Eastern and Western Europe. And in Germany, it ran right through the old country. I'm saying the old country because that was the new country was separated by this. So you had the capitalist Western Republic was called the Federal Republic of Germany, which was run on what we now call the libertarian or liberal democratic order, like freiheitlich-demokratische Grundordnung. And you had the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, which was a statist socialist government run by a very Moscow depending SED, Socialist Unification Party, Sozialistische Einheitspartei Deutschland. And this went on until 1989, when actually the communist experiment was abandoned by Gorbachev and by actually pretty much every country around. And the German Chancellor, Helmut Kohl, I always call him the Peach because he looked like one. He wanted to be the chancellor of the unification because there were already accords going on that the border is to be opened and that there will be like a freedom of travel between Eastern Germany and Western Germany. But it was initially, Todesrune, a friend of ours, he says initially Stalin wanted a neutral, united and demilitarized Germany, but the West didn't. Yeah. Helmut Kohl wanted to be like the chancellor of the unification, so they sped up all the process. And then in Western Germany, like the mythos in Western Germany is that the peaceful revolution of the GDR, there's no such thing, but they love that mythos. The peaceful revolution of the GDR like brought the criminal regime, toppled the regime, and they wanted reunification with Germany. They were so happy to have us there. What actually happened is that they ran out of money, and Germany said, okay, that's ours now, and you do as we say. So from one day to the other, all the state-run big corporations, like huge construction companies, all state-run
industry,
all the industries. Now this is where, and I didn't know this until recently, doing some research for the show. I didn't know that overnight it was like 4 million unemployed people.
Yes,
when they took over those industries. Did you know that, Pascal?
No, I was not.
Yeah, I mean the whole shtick was, you now take over. Like obviously, West Germany even had in their constitution written down that they have they demand East Germany to be part of their sovereignty, and now they take that over. They themselves have a whole developed own industry. West Germany does, and East Germany, of course, also tried to have one, right? Maybe a little less developed than the Western one, because West got much more support also from the West, but. Yeah, so now you have a problem, because now you have competing industries. Because what you are doing, was West Germany, you're a capitalist market. So now technically you have companies there. They were state-run companies, but still companies there that are overproducing to your demand and are competing with your industry. So what happened is they got shut down. Technically, they were bought up for €1. This is very famous, because some of these companies
one mark
for 1 mark, exactly.
Wow.
And then basically they disappeared from one day to the other, and all these people that were working in these factories, and that's also how they sustained their living, didn't have that anymore, right?
A friend of mine told me the story that he was an apprentice on a construction company in Western Germany, and without any warning, one morning the factory doors simply did not open, and there was 20,000 people in the street waiting for those factory doors to open. And that was it for them. They were unemployed that very day.
Oh.
Yeah, so of course, and then, then people start to think, okay, what to do now? Like, will something change? And then there were a lot of promises coming from the West. Yeah, we'll take care of it, and we'll integrate you, and we'll help, we'll invest. Invest. And of course, some people were encouraged to go to the Western towns, but how many people do they need?
Yeah,
it's a functioning industry. They are building cars, Volkswagen and all these guys. They're building cars. Do they need now 20,000 new workers in their factories?
Nope.
Not like, how fast does this go to build these kind of factories, to employ that many people? And even if you build these factories, is that even profitable? Are you even interested in that? So all of this resulted basically in an economic and social catastrophe for East Germany that you can see up, guys, until today. If you come to East Germany and you drive through some of these towns, of course, also in East Germany, the gentrification has been happening, and some of these higher class towns like Leipzig or so, they look really nice. They got refurbished and everything. But if you go to some of the smaller towns, you don't know that you are in a developed, Western country. There are people that you walk through the street and you see people that don't have teeth. Like, it's not a joke. Like,
and this is pretty recent. And when I say recent, I mean this is in our lifetimes. I think we're all around the same age. So I was in school when the wall fell. I was in junior high. I was about 12.
I was very excited because David Hasselhoff came over.
But you were in Berlin. I wasn't.
And I loved this Knight Rider show, so I was like, oh, Michael Knight is here.
Pascal, do you remember when the wall came down?
Absolutely. I was in college.
Did you feel like liberal democracy had won?
I never bought into that jazz.
Did you know a lot of this history that Danny?
I didn't. I mean, I didn't know a lot of the details, but don't forget, I had family that lived in the Soviet Union and the Eastern Europe, so I was very familiar with the trajectory in which Germany had gone through World War II, and how it was basically fractured Eastern Germany and Western Germany as a consequence of the division between the Soviets and the NATO allies. So I had always kind of been aware of that and was suspicious of how it was going to turn out in the end.
So if the fall of World War I leads to what we're going to later call fascism, what then does the fall of the wall lead to? A new kind of fascism? Or something different, right?
It is something different.
I would say the American century.
Sorry?
I would say the beginning of the end of the American century. When we see the fall of Germany, we kind of get into the end of history narratives. Those narratives we start to rise, and this kind of notion of like we're into the end of the American century and we're going into a new era where we're trying to chart out where Western civilization is going to go.
We're hitting the 2000s too, right? This is 1990. Yeah.
So that kind of discourse really starts to carry out.
I think when it comes to the question whether, is there a rise of a new fascism, right? So I would definitely go with the rise of a far right, or Rechtsruck, we say in Germany, like a push to the right. When it comes to fascism, there are two things. So the first is the people that want that have this kind of mindset, they are not around. They really are not. There are some in the AfD, which is this right-wing party. That's true, but the party itself is not.
It's not fascist.
It's a democratic party that's ultra-right. That's the thing. But there's nobody around. There might be also a reason why I'll get to that in a second. But there's nobody around that demands for democracy to end, and that is really like a key fascist narrative of democracy is hindering our nation's growth and our nation's right to step beyond, as democracy and all these petty infighting of all these opportunists and these corrupt people. We have to get rid of them. We have to get the strong men in, or get the strong party in, to take care of that. And this we do not have. This does not exist. It is also, and there is a reason, there might be some people that want that. I'm not disagreeing, and maybe even more people than I think in the AfD want that, but they can't say it because it's against the law, right? To make statements like this as a party or a party official in Germany will get you and will get your party ended, right?
Is that a good thing?
Look, the thing is that I don't know if it's good or bad, because I think the outcome is not very good anyway. I'm just trying to say, don't think of democracy not being able to match fascism in terms of the horrors it can unleash on people. Don't think that everything that's bad, everything that looks a little bit authoritarian, not liberal, is immediately fascism. No. It's clear and pure democracy, what's happening here. And we should not be fans of that.
It will just,
either.
Yeah, it will be people validated by election state terror. If you want to really boil it down to a polemic.
So just to the law again, like the German constitution was very much built with fascism in mind. Don't forget, it was not built by Germans alone. It was built by occupying powers also, and they also had a lot to chip in. And what it basically tried to write into the constitution is that there is no more possibility, really there isn't, by a, let's say, legal coup d'etat.
Okay.
So taking over Germany with a fascist party with legal means is technically pretty much infeasible.
Same, actually, it goes both directions. Same for communism.
Yes.
Whoever challenges the freiheitlich-demokratische Grundordnung, democratic freedom,
right,
is like an enemy of the state immediately.
Now you might say, yeah, okay, but what about the non-legal means? And there might be some militant groups that are starting to fantasize about taking over the state. I'm sorry, but that's the same, by the way, also again for communists. That's a fantasy. We're talking about a state that is like highly militarized. We have a completely different situation in terms of how much the German society is penetrated by German state, military, police, etc. We are talking about a completely different society than the one 75 or 80 years ago. So the idea that there is some military organization building inside of the society taking over the state without any problem, it's just ludicrous. I think today that doesn't happen anymore. By the way, the same in the US. I think in the US it's even much worse because they have nuclear weapons. And whoever thinks that they want to use these weapons against their own people, they will. If they have to, they will.
Oh, we saw it with
Philadelphia, the bombings, right? These bombings in Philadelphia in the 70s, I think they bombed their own.
Well, no, that was in the 80s. That was in
80s, was that? Yeah, okay.
5 with the MOVE bombing. But I mean, worse than the MOVE bombing is probably, or up there. I know more casualties happened in Waco, Texas, when
yes.
So we're not afraid to literally murder our own people on national television.
So the state basically is set up as a democratic state, and it will probably stay that too. Now maybe it's time to speak a little bit about what kind of horrors this entails also, because and now there's another aspect where people quickly move to think that, nationalist thought, let's say anti-immigrant ideas, anti-European Union ideas and stuff like that, that always has to come from fascism or from fascist ideology.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. It's a very logical, democratic mindset. If you are in a situation where the highest thing that you value is your nation, not your personal need, no, your nation, your how you're seen in the world, how you're respected in the world, how much success you have, how good you are in the wars, how nice your military is, but also how good your, literature and all your poets and all this bullshit is. If you are proud of that, then you come to a crisis. You come to a situation where, things are looking dire. People are maybe poorer, or maybe you have problems with a lot of influx of refugees, whatever you observe. And you measure that against what you demand actually to happen, which is your nation should thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you quickly make, like, if you follow this nationalist, democratic nationalist mindset, you quickly come to reasonable demands of, okay, less refugees.
Yeah, we're paying too much for them.
We don't even have money for the people here. Look at East Germany. Look at all these people that don't have education. We need less refugees. Instead of asking, okay, why is it that they don't have money?
Where did it go?
Is it like refugees eating the food away or something? Like, instead of asking,
where are the refugees that are in Germany coming from?
Yeah, there was. Okay, so why are we saying refugees? Because that, of course, was a big topic in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? In 2015, Merkel, after the war in Syria was raging on for like 3-4 years already. And it started to be clear that there is going to be more intensive influx of refugees to Europe. The borders in Europe started to not being able, like the southern borders especially, but also east, starting not being able to control them. And there was a lot of discussion in the European Union, okay, how should we handle that? Because we need to somehow delegate these refugees in Europe, because if not, it's not fair. We are all using the same currency. We're trying to have the same market space. And now, only Italy gets all the refugees. That's not fair. So there was a lot of infighting. And then at one point, Merkel made like this very famous statement. And there's also a reason why she did that. It's not because she's so benevolent and a nice person. But she said, Germany is open to all the refugees.
I remember.
Everybody can come here.
Mm-hmm.
We can, like, the war in Syria is so bad, we can take that over. We have
but I only
power.
want the good ones.
Yeah, this happens after. But she would really say it was a new Willkommenskultur. We said the new welcome culture. It was really like, wir schaffen das, she said. She also appealed to the national pride in the people and said, we can do it. Like, yes, we can, right? Something like this, right? So why did she do that? Well, in the moment just before that happened, as I said, there were a lot of discussions happening in Europe. How should we deal with this? And of course, there were also far-right people there that said, okay, now we're going to shoot some people at the border and then we try to push them away or something like this. And she's tried to establish herself and that was the clearest intention. She tried to establish herself as the ordering power, the ordering voice in this dispute around Europe. Germany is now going to decide what happens with Europe, because Germany has right now opened the borders to all the refugees, at least, in saying. And that means now Europe has to deal with it. And as Germany is the powerhouse of Europe, so they have a lot of economical power that they can extort the other countries by. They forced them to take their share of refugees and do their, And in the end, also, by the way, all the refugees still have to come through Italy or through the east. So in the end, there is a lot of infighting going on up until today, as to who should take care of the refugees, how many people are here, and then there's 20,000 people here that should be sent to Italy, and Italy has 30,000 that should be sent to Germany, and they are being kept because they are still negotiating on how to exchange them. It's ridiculous.
So you're saying it was a mechanism for Merkel to exercise authority over what the future narrative of what Europe was to be.
She established herself as the ordering voice in this. She is now the one who says how we are going to deal with that as Europe. Even though she only spoke of Germany, she established herself as, I'm now the voice of Europe. And since then, this has also been unchanged. This is or
Very,
at least
very-
Germany keeps trying to do that.
Very few years later, they pulled another stunt like that with Greece during their financial crisis, where they overruled a democratic vote in
No,
a
that
European.
was before. That was 2014. No, wasn't it?
I thought it was 17.
The OHI voice was 2014. I think.
Was it? Okay.
It was
then-
just 1 year before.
Yeah.
So the European Union back then, if you remember, 2014, OHI, the no vote of Greece to exit the European Union. Germany
No, not to exit, but to not
bow to the austerity
or
or
the
exit.
austerity
Yeah.
politics.
And Germany used the sharpest swords it had and basically destroyed Greek government and had them even take worse conditions than the ones they set out to. It was really horrible. If you want to see what happened back there in the negotiations, read the book of Yanis Varoufakis on this topic.
We had Giannis on.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Pascal brought that question to him at the end of a show we did for the Real News. We had a contract.
Why did they do that? Because they felt their European Union. Why did Germany do this? Because they felt the European Union as a project is losing its legitimacy and is falling apart. And there were people, I don't know if you remember this, but there were other countries back then that were also voicing their intent to leave. There was Portugal, I think. I think Italy also said something. And of course, we had Great Britain, right? And now we come to what the European Union is. The European Union for Germany is Germany's project. This is how they maintain their economic dominance over this market. It's quite easy to understand if you think of this, as competitors, actually. These nation states, they are all competitors. If you now have one guy that is much stronger economically than everybody else, and now you open the markets, but you open the markets in for everyone in the same way. Everybody uses the same currency, and everybody
Gets the same trade deals.
Gets the same trade deals. Who will win? Germany will win. Right? They had at the same time, they did a lot of dirty tricks by, for example, opening a whole new sector of low and cheap labor in Germany, drafting a lot of labor from Eastern Germany to Germany, actually removing that labor power from these countries so they cannot get up. So in this competitive field, the refugee question comes in as this is another problem that is threatening our European Union to fall apart. And this is why Merkel said, I cannot let that happen. I'm stepping in and I'm taking over. Right?
And now you say as we do, and you do as we say.
So the European Union, maybe that's also important to understand for the rise of the right. The European Union really is, and they don't understand that, it's a project of Germany's imperialism.
Yes.
Towards their own neighbors and towards the countries in Europe. This is how they establish and dominate the rest of Europe.
This is very important because in 2014, when Germany dictated all conditions for Greece and how to overcome their crisis, you could really you could almost metaphorically hear a pin drop because the rest of Europe just realized how fucked they were. And this is also when for example, the Britons realized that the European Union is not the project that they can latch on for their own imperialism.
It's free collaboration and everybody's in for everybody's success. And suddenly there's one guy that says, hey guys, I want to get out, and you just destroy him in front of everybody. That's really like Game of Thrones.
They slapped Greece into submission. Greece is now a failed state because of Germany, and they will never ever get back on their feet under the conditions that are set in the European Union. That's it for them. They're done. I'm in Greece every year for a couple of months. This country is falling apart at a rate that I haven't seen in my life.
Yeah.
Oof. Pascal, do you have anything to add to that?
So if we understand that the notion of the nature of the EU is basically to coerce power in the hands of Germany, why are we surprised that we have these alternative kind of factions of power trying to contest that in the rise of the reactionary right? Isn't it a logical outgrowth of all of this attempt to assert power by Germany and the EU?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's also one of the few honest distinctions that you have between, for example, the conservative Christian Democratic Party in Germany and the AfD, because the Christian conservatives, they say we need the EU, it's a tool of power to us, we want it. And the AfD says, yeah, but it's also like it's a foreign influence on us, so we should maybe look at it more critically. But in the end, they will not get rid of the European Union.
Let's speak about the AfD for a second, because I think this is interesting. They came to life. This is the far-right party, right, that we're talking about. They came to life in 2013, I think they were founded, or 2012, I'm not sure. And back then when they were founded, they were just another neoliberal
radically market liberal. There were
mostly academics, actually. The people that were leading this company were mostly academics, and they didn't have that narrative down yet of being against migration, being against the European Union. They were part of this anti-European Union drive back then, basically saying that we are losing sovereignty and power that we could have and could exercise in this way it's also true, because if Germany wants to have that project as its way to further its power inside of this European bloc, but also unify Europe to do its bidding when it comes to, for example, international politics, there's always, by the way, this competition to the US included in this thinking, because they think that they want this competition, being the US, the global hegemon. They want the European Union to start competing and start being able to, not only economically, but also militarily, stand their own ground. It's all the discourse in Germany is today. It's about, becoming military strong enough to be able to emancipate ourselves from Germany, from the US.
Yes.
So the AfD comes in, says, okay, anti-European Union, but other than this, we're just a neoliberal, market liberal party, blah, blah, blah. So they stay pretty insignificant. And then this migration crisis starts, and there is a movement happening in East Germany, specifically in East Germany, where there's a lot of anti-migration demonstrations. This movement is called Pegida, and the AfD latches onto that and says, okay, yeah, actually, you are right, and we are going to support you now. And suddenly some AfD people are also joining these protests, and this is how it became popular. And since then, it has been, and that's why it's not, I wouldn't say it's cycles. You asked before, Jason, is it a cycle of the far right? No, it has, at least in Germany's case, it has been a continuous growth. And with the continuous growth and acceptance of the AfD into the political landscape of Germany, the panic on the established elites and other parties increased the same, right? And this is basically where we are at now. They still have a little bit of their anti-European Union narrative, but it has changed, actually. If you look what they said before they were really against the European Union. Now they are much more consolidative. They're much more like saying, yeah, European Union is good, it's fine, but they are much more, much more brazen about that. They understand now that the European Union is Germany's tool, and they just ask for that tool to be used more in the interest of Germany.
Yes.
And less in the interest of the other countries.
More openly, let's stop the charade. This is our tool, and we're going to use it more forcefully. And of course, the main narrative right now, but this is also for all the parties right now, is anti-immigration. And what they actually succeeded in, I don't even want to say that they succeeded, but what was interesting is that this anti-immigration rhetoric that started in 2015 is now the most important topic to all parties in the German election coming up. None of them have a except for the Linkspartei, but I mean they're almost like ridiculously.
We need to qualify this with Wagenknecht, because she also adheres to this.
Yeah, but Wagenknecht is also like anti-immigration.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So all of them are openly against immigration, and it's also very interesting because we're always complaining about the rise of the far right in Germany. We right now have the so-called Trafficlight Coalition, the Ampelkoalition, run by liberals, social democrats, and Greens. And we by now can say by fact that the outer European border is the most lethal one in the world. So I don't even want to know where to go from here.
Yeah, the amount of people that have been how do you say Abschiebung in Germany? Like
deported
from Germany is like rising,
it's
and
an all-time high.
They are congratulating in each other, like these liberal parties, green parties, congratulating each other in public on how effectively they deport people. So, like, so the
let me ask you this question. Just to kind of add on to the point you guys are making, it seems like the rise of these far right movements is not confined to Germany, right? You have France's National Rally and Italy's Brothers of Italy. They've seen increased support. Is immigration just the common thread with these far right movements?
It's the when you as a nation feel your nation threatened.
Mhm.
You look around and you say everybody's bad, or I don't know, so many people are unemployed, or like here some guys, I don't know, complain about long lines at the doctor and whatever they complain. They have so many complaints because in a democracy, in a capitalist society, everybody fucking complains all the time, right? Because their life is fucking horrible, right?
Yeah.
So for most people, let's say there are some that are well off, but for most people, it's really just sucks. Yeah, so they have things to complain, and if they make that connection to this is not just my problem, or this is not a problem maybe with society and we need to change that, but they say, no, society is great. German society, capitalism, freedom, that's all great. We want that. They say, we want that. And if it doesn't work, that means somebody is doing something bad there. It might be some politician. It might be in the past some Jews. It might be, some foreigners that are coming and holding us down, or it's the European Union. Somebody is doing something bad there. Never ever do they allow themselves the idea, hey, maybe something is wrong with that system. Maybe we should change something about that. So to find that guilty person is common to all democracies. And by the way, how that then happens, like, for example, you said, French people have also far right. Their far right is, let's say, I think they are even more ludicrous than Germans. And I think also it's a bit older, that movement. So how these movements then actually develop and at what time, for example, the US was also different, right? Is then also dependent to the history and to the to the circumstances. But in the end, if you are in crisis and you believe in nation, you see your nation going down, and you believe that the nation is a good thing, you are always going to start looking around for people that are guilty, and of course, the people that don't belong to that nation.
First pick.
Of course, they gotta be them.
I wanna slice in very quickly because you actually made a very interesting point. Because you said that the AfD went from like openly anti-EU rhetoric to kind of like, EU, but let's have it more under German's dominance. The far right in France is actually a very, very interesting topic as well, because the Front National, when they started out with Jean-Marie Le Pen, the father of Marine Le Pen, who's currently running the Front National, he was like a downright neo-Nazi. Like, there is no denying that. He was anti-Semitic, racist. He really
in a way that was not 10 years ago, that was not possible. At least I think even today it's not possible. But in Germany it was not possible.
He had criminal convictions, everything. So he had the full Monty of the liberal democracy in France working against him. And when his daughter took over, she moved the Front National from a far right racist anti-democratic party to a market liberal democratic far right party. So this is actually what we're looking at. Like almost none of the parties that we're talking about in Europe, I think none of the important ones are talking about getting rid of democracy. Like, they're all talking about how to make sure that their nation rises back to the power it's supposed to have, but not by ditching this, or turning around the voting system. And the interesting thing is that. And this is why I'm like really pessimistic right now. It's just like all the parties have latched onto that rhetoric, and it's actually just like, if you look at the Christian Democratic Party in the AfD, they would probably argue a little bit about what constitutes a proper German, but in everything else they would be like in a 100% agreement.
After the AfD won a lot in Thüringen and Thuringia, right? That's also one.
I was going to try to say that city name and butcher it, so I'm glad you said it. So thank you.
Thuringia, it's not Thüringen. There was, like, we call that an elephant round. It's called like when all the parties, the heads of the parties, the elephants, meet after the election to hold a postage.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
And they start to discuss, what's going to happen now, next. Oh, AfD is so strong. And of course, the biggest topic was back then the AfD, the right-wing party. Oh, it got so strong, right? And there was an AfD guy there too. And there were such hilarious moments where, as well as from the Christian Democrats, as well as from SPD, they were saying things, anti-immigrant, rhetoric and demands on how we should deal with people and how we should deport more people, blah blah blah. And this AfD guy, he's like literally standing there and saying, "Guys, we've been saying this all along. What's going on?
We've been saying this for years. You finally latched on.
Yeah, great." and you also have to say, in certain fields, they just outdid them. They just demand more than what they were demanding a couple of years ago. They are actually doing more. Like this guy himself also said, like looking at how much Scholz deported, we didn't even dream.
Yeah.
We didn't even dream that we could be that effective. So yeah, okay, good to know. So let's do more.
So
right?
like,
there's something that's really consistent about this that I find rather disturbing, is that what you're telling me is that all of the internal contradictions of capitalism that are being suffered by Western nation states are so unwilling to be addressed by their rulers that the only mechanism that they find to actually create correctives is to blame immigrants. And that's basically the best option.
Not necessarily only immigrants. Generally, in Germany, we right now have a rhetoric that is very anti any kind of specific questioning. So it's not just immigrants. For example, if you look at the war in Gaza right now. So, for example, if you have a dissenting opinion on what the state of Germany wants to do there or wants to happen there, you are also now under a legal crackdown. It's not just frowned upon. It's not just a moral outcry that you had. But it's more, it's getting real. It's like they're setting up fines, they're setting up maybe even new laws to make sure that there is less and less questioning of what the state sets out to do. So immigrants are always one of the first possible choices. But for example, if that shouldn't work out, they will find other reasons.
And I want to say something else, because the way that you asked the question, I just want to make sure to not be misunderstood, at least from what I wanted to say. It's not a case of the ruling class, let's say the politicians, installing a narrative, an anti-migrant narrative in the people, as if they are using this to steer the population to whatever they want to achieve. No, that comes from the people. It comes clearly from their ideas on what this nation should be and where it's suffering and the pains that they're looking at. Now, of course, there is media and there's politicians and what they say, and it kind of influences each other. But if you look at the commonality, you really see that the nationalism of the parties is a mirror, is really like in the democratic ideal. At least it is like this here. It's really a mirror of what a lot of people think. It just is, and it's not like somebody came and told them, yeah, but there is this old explanation of racism kind of being like a diverging tactic to tell people not to fight the capitalists, fight this guy. I think it's much worse than that. It's much worse than that. People really believe in that their nation is under threat, that threat comes from the outside. And if there are people from the outside and the inside, they really want a party like the AfD. And this is why all the other parties now latch onto this narrative, because they realize, the AfD is growing for 15 years and it's not stopping. In the beginning, they were like, it's just a phase. It's just a cycle.
It's just populist,
but it's not stopping. It's going on. And then they realize, okay, this is now the new state reasoning. We have to adhere to this. This is what we have to do now. And also, not only because the people say it, they have to do it, but they actually believe it different. No, they share that sentiment with them. They are also nationalists, and they are also worried about, maybe too much criminality or whatever they put as their.
I mean, that's part of the narrative here. I will say that and it's worked quite well in propaganda fearing of tough on crime laws that we've seen a return to. Pascal, what do you say to this idea that both parties, and even here in the U.S., use kind of these nationalistic fears of an encroaching other from the south? For us, it's the southern border, Latin Americans coming through. Because again, I don't know how much far right media people actually listen to. Not far right media through the lens of some liberal figure that wants to make fun of them, but literally on your own listening to it, because it's not just brown people coming through. There's also this fear of Chinese people coming
Right.
through, and
Right.
quote unquote terrorists, because anyone from
Right.
any sort of Muslim country in the Middle East is a terrorist coming through the southern border. There is a lot of truth to the fact that other people from other nations do come through the southern border, because there are literally airports that don't check your passports in certain areas of South and Central America. That being said, if Western hegemony stopped trying to destabilize nations within the South, loosened the stranglehold on a country like Venezuela, for example, who's having a mass exodus of people due to the economic conditions there, you'll probably get a lot less people trying to go anywhere to just survive. What say you on that, Pascal Robert?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, a perfect example of that is that look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama was deporting people at rates that was rivaling George W. Bush when he was president. So what becomes interesting is that the anti-immigrant posturing becomes the norm for both flanks of capital and for both parties, and it may become rhetorically something used by the right, but ultimately in terms of policies, the liberals adopt it as well, and they'll use it when necessary. And a perfect example of that was in this last election. If you look at Kamala Harris's vice presidential debate, he was sounding a lot like J.D. Vance in terms of his echoing of anti-immigrant sentiments. It was very, very similar. There was not that much distinction between the two of them. So unfortunately, I think what you're saying is correct, Jason. They will both mimic each other in terms of their willingness to use the immigrant as the bête noire to prove that they are the problem with what's going on in America.
Yeah, and let me maybe add one thing. This happens here too. So there's a lot, like there was another question in the question catalog about media and how media plays into the hysteria about this stuff. And this happens here too, of course. And we have media that much stronger than the politicians, and maybe even sometimes even much stronger than the far right parties. Actually, hetzen.
Yeah, they fear mongering.
They're doing fear mongering against migrants, etc. So, and of course this does something. But what I want to say is that if you read a newspaper and there's something about some refugee guy stabbing somebody, and then there's like a small paragraph like this, and it tells you that it's all about Islam and it's all about bad Muslims, and we have too many of them here and we need to get rid of them. To follow this idea, like, you already have to share the same the same terms in how you think about the world, which is in the nation, in those borders, in other people coming from there, and being potentially at least being a disturbance here. For that to make sense, because look, if you, Pascal, or if we read those newspapers, we're like, what the fuck is this? Like, leave us alone with it, right? So that's what I'm trying to say is, even if this fear mongering helps in magnifying the response to this kind of stuff in the population, and also helps in growing the far right movement, I don't think that's the reason as to why people think that this makes sense.
It's you can say it's amplified, but the sentiment is already there.
That's what I'd say. Exactly.
It's pretty dark. You mean like because people love the narrative of like, oh, poor population is manipulated into being racist. No, fuck, they already are. That's it. I'm sorry. It's even worse.
Yeah. It's like sometimes, and it's mostly people that don't speak with. I'm talking about Germany now. Yeah. It's mostly people that don't speak with these guys, with the people that would vote far right. They have either one of two opinions of them. A, they are completely irrational morons that don't think about anything and let themselves be manipulated by media and political elite, which is far right. They're just doing whatever is somebody asks them to do. So and as soon as you try to explain, well, there might be a reasoning there. Like, for example, look at East Germany and what happened. Like, they might have some grievances. No. You're already trying to being apologetic about what they do. They should be condemned. And then there is the other one, which is like super romantic about them and saying, yeah, they're basically just poor people, and they were, look how fucked up they were by the state and what kind of hard life they had also. And so from there, it's understandable that they become racist hate mongers, basically, and that's also wrong. No, it's not understandable. And also, by the way, not everybody in the East Germany, even a lot of the poor people there, are racist hate mongers. They are not. There are some that vote this party, but the majority isn't actually. The majority didn't even vote.
Well, that's how I
Right?
feel about the United States as well.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody that voted for Donald Trump or even Trump-like policies are extremely racist hate mongers. I think it's kind of baked into a simplistic understanding of how capitalism works and how empire works, and to just say, well, these immigrants come in to take your jobs. And it's like, well, if you think that, then explain the migrant caravans, because these migrant caravans that have been decimating major metropolitan areas like Chicago and New York, those people aren't working. They're not integrating themselves into construction jobs and now, buying homes. They're homeless. The homeless population in Chicago has tripled. So if your answer is extremely simple, oh, this is just what capital does. They want open borders to lower wages for workers. First and foremost, I'd say, do you really need immigrants in 2024? Because we have a lot of unemployed people right now that some of them are probably skilled.
Yeah, that's also maybe that's one of the things you mentioned that before when it came to Merkel, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the aspects was, for sure, I mean, they already thought, okay, when all these refugees come, we're at least going to filter out the good ones. Good ones being the ones that we need, right?
Fun fact, just quickly, we just had a rise in minimum wage at that time, and they said, okay, let them come, and we exempt them from minimum wage.
Yeah, that's how that works too, like the over exploitation, basically. But yeah, where I wanted to get at is like, what one should be asking is not, are they coming here and being then homeless? Because Pascal and Jason, that I think better than anyone, is they like right-wing hate mongers. They will hate also, unemployed guys.
Yeah.
And there will be a lot of fear mongering about these people too, and they will be put into ghettos, into some areas of some cities and stuff like that, and they that's also not something a good nationalist wants. I once talked to somebody in the US, and it was, I actually don't want to say that now because it might be
say it.
It might be
you went too far. You've went too far.
But it was a person I actually liked, and the amount of disgust and the amount of contempt they had for living in Los Angeles and seeing so much poverty in LA, right? You talk about this often, Jason.
Yeah.
So instead of just saying like, fuck, like what's going on in this fucking society that this is happening, it was more like, the police should just, put them on buses and drive them out, Like, why are they here?
I don't know if people know this. California has been doing that for over a year now. They've been putting poor people on buses and just distributing them throughout the country.
Not surprised.
I was born and raised in Munich, and in Munich there is no how can I say, no begging, no vagrancy in the city center. So whenever they see someone see a bum in the city center, they pack him into the police car and drive him to outside the city center, so that the inner circle of Munich is always void of poverty.
And this is one of those things that I think when we talk about any sort of rise of nationalism, because I do think for the U.S. Case, I don't know if you agree with me, Pascal, for a lot of people, Trump represents some sort of nationalism.
A lot of people believe that, yeah.
And
Make America great again, right?
Sure. I mean, that's just Ronald Reagan literally a recycled slogan from '81. I don't even know if he knows what that means. But this idea,
isn't that what he said to Biden in that debate? I don't even know what he knew. I don't even know if he knew what he was trying to say.
Like, it's interesting to me that it's so easy to point a finger at immigrants and ask yourself, well, why are so many people coming through? Why are so many people trying to come through? And again, the oversimplistic way to see that is, oh, we're where the jobs are.
Right.
And go ahead.
The thing is like because we're right now focusing on the anti-immigrant and the xenophobic rhetoric of the far right, but what I think is something that people need to let sink in is that even like if we get a far right party now and they get rid of all the foreigners, like hypothetically, or like put a real dent on migration, this will not overcome the contradictions of capitalism. So they will find the next suitable object for their explanation of why this country is not successful. So I think that what we are observing right now, and Nadim said it to me before the show even started, and I am in full agreement. What we also see is like liberalism failing to address the contradictions of capitalism in a state of time where the competition internally and externally has reached new escalation levels, and liberalism is completely unable to address them anymore. So what we're seeing is an increase in authoritarian repression, in authoritarian rhetoric that makes sure that no matter what happens, this system that has been set in motion will not stop. It will continue grinding us all up in exploitation and wage labor.
It's LGBT already, right? Like, all the
it's
queer
whoever. It's
feminism,
like in America, you see it with the culture war. Like they will latch on to anyone that they can put their finger on to say they are at fault for capitalism being a fucked up system. Never, ever admitting the fact of the problem, that the crisis is the system itself.
So I want to latch onto this and I want to say something because coming back to the unemployed, because here the argument is but they're not really coming to take your jobs, right? They are being unemployed, so they don't even take your jobs. You shouldn't be scared. Why are you scared? The thing is, it doesn't really hit, this argument doesn't really hit their error, because their mistake in their thinking, because what if they actually came to take the jobs? Let's suppose for a second that, it's not unrealistic that somebody from a poorer country says, I can't make a living here, my kids are starving, I'm going to another country, they have jobs there, I'm going to work there. Okay, and when this happens, just objectively speaking, there is an increase in competition on those jobs. There's an increase in rental market and all this stuff, right? So now you could, on the one hand, say, but there is no competition yet, or the competition is so low, or we have so many apartments, we have so many jobs, we need these people. Okay, but then you're still attached to that nationalistic mindset where you think about other people joining on the terms of how useful they are to you and your nation. So what you should rather do is ask yourself, why is it even in the first place? And nobody asks that anymore, man. Nobody, especially on the left. Why is it in the first place that we are in competition with each other? Why do we fucking have to compete for everything? Why is rent escalating here while at the same time we have 5,000 apartments standing empty because they are being traded on the stock market? Why is that happening? And nobody is actually going there, which that is the underlying reason for why there is a problem when there is too much immigration into a country. So in the end, this is also a little bit what Daniel said. In the end, what we need to address, and by we, I don't mean the political parties, because they want to and they cannot, because they are there to uphold that competition and that system. So they are not there to change that. So what I'm saying is not, vote for this party or for that party. It's just like saying, okay, start thinking about what the reasons are for the shit that you are walking in, which is, why is there even a competition on jobs? Why do I have to go to fucking work every day in order to get some paper in my pocket to be able to eat something, and then in the end of the day, don't even have enough to eat? So asking these kind of questions, this really gets to the foundations of the problem there. The problem is these questions are really difficult, and no one wants to, no one wants to hear them. Everybody agrees with the national narrative.
I'll go further with you. Not that no one wants to hear them. They're not exciting.
Yeah.
You know what's exciting? The idea of Jake Paul getting knocked out by 60-year-old Mike Tyson.
And it didn't happen. I was so pissed.
Hey, Daniel, not him. Am I lying? That's Pascal. Am I lying? That's what's exciting. What's exciting is Donald Trump saying, you know what the problem is? It's these dudes that are wearing dresses with bang bangs going to the bathroom, and they do little whirly dervishes with their dicks when they go in the bathroom. That's exciting to talk about that. it's not exciting to sit there and go, well, what we have here is a contradiction of the system in which we all exist in. And this is just part of the internal contradiction. In one, out the other. I'm here to see the spectacle that is the asshole get punched in the face. Can you show me the spectacle? Because if not, I just don't care. And it sounds like globally, that's kind of where we are.
I would up the ante even one step further and would say where the questioning that especially like Nadim and I have kind of become famous for in the German podcast community. It's not that the questioning is not just not exciting, it's highly depressing. Because once you realize how powerless you are, how little opportunity to in any which way incite change in society do you have, even in a democratic society. Right now, I'm actually at the point where I say, like, I can criticize a lot, and I think it's very important to criticize. I have no fucking idea where to even start changing, like, effectively, because that's just not happening right now. As long as even among the left, and I'm even talking about communists, I'm not talking about liberal lefties or social democrats, like even like downright communists and anarchists, as long as they stick to their nationalist idealism and to their idealism about states and capitalism, I don't even know where to start. You know, like people always say, like get more practical. Practical in what?
Yeah, I mean, if there is this insight that we now had and we established that, let's suppose we established that between the four of us, and we say, yeah, okay, we need to do something about this competition. And why is it there? Maybe we need to even do some research and finding out why it's there in the first place and how is it installed, how is it upheld, etc. Okay, but then we have that in between the four of us, and then we sit there and we're like, yeah, now we are wise. And now
aren't we a smart bunch of people?
In the end, now we need a lot of people like us, and we need to talk to people and try to teach or help them understand the world in the way that we think now we understand correctly. And only then, when that movement is big enough, can we really even talk about how
only
do we
then when all
that?
are podcasters, then we shall be
Yes.
one.
Exactly.
I want to ask you a serious question though, Pascal Robert. We saw in 2016 in America for the first time in 60 years the rise of New Deal Keynesianism as a solution to the failures of neoliberalism, right? If we just go back and have a little bit of social democracy, maybe things will get a little better for people. And we saw that get shot down. And not just shot down with a sniper rifle, but like a Charles Bronson movie where the guy's 10 feet away and you shoot him with a rocket launcher. Like we saw it get rocket launched down. How do you get even a return to these sort of ideals? Because kind of to Daniel and Nadim's point, it does feel extremely hopeless when you have some 80-year-old guy going, what about giving the poor some health care? And they're like, boom. So what do you say, Pascal?
I think that we have to find some way to really get into penetrating the ideological superstructure of the society beyond simply like dealing with the shits and giggles of Mike Tyson fighting Jake Paul, and really start to talk about like, how do we make the physical reality of life better for people with what we have in the society. And it's going to take us having politicians and the media apparatus with some imagination to address these kind of major fault lines, because simply like dealing with the kind of idiocracy that we have today isn't cutting the mustard. I think it's going to take a lot more imagination on our part to find ways to really kind of like get the people where they are and organize them to really orchestrate a more resourcefully representative government.
Again, I guess I got to ask the question: how is that done? When you're seeing in the U.S., I can't speak for Germany. It sounds like there is some labor repression, but how strong are the labor unions in Germany, for example?
Yeah, compared to the U.S., they're quite strong.
I mean, that's not saying much.
we have labor unions. Yeah.
There has been like a major shift. Like we have strong labor unions, but there's a so-called thing, the Sozialpartnerschaft, the social partnership. So the unions are actually they stick to the same nationalist capitalist goal. They're like we want to see this country prosper, and we will help with that. As long as we see that people are not overexploited. So it's far from any kind of revolutionary setup.
Let's say it like this. While in the US, I think the legal basis for labor union work and unions in general was really cut at its core, right? I think in the 80s, a lot happened. I read a book about this once, but no need to get into the details. But basically, it's really, really difficult for you guys there now to, build effective unions. And then at the same time, also all the market, the market changes. We have a lot of, not industry work anymore, but service sector work. So that's much more difficult to unionize, etc. In Germany, that didn't happen that much. Like the cut of the union as an institution, it didn't happen as much. But what did happen is the integration of the union into the nationalistic evaluation of the situation right now. So any kind of union leader, he will always appeal to to capital as, if you give us more money, we can be much more productive, right? So, and if you do that already, then you are already subduing yourself to their goals, which is making you as productive as possible. And in their opinion, you might already be productive enough. If they say like, no, thanks, you're good, then you don't get more money, right? And so this is, at the same time, union law here is highly regulated. You cannot just, go and strike. There has to be like democratic votes inside of the labor union, and it has to be accepted and it has to be checked. So it's very German. Actually, just a wildcat strike, just going to strike and not going to work, is actually illegal. If you do that. I mean, I think in the US the same, but we have that too. So the normal strike, the strikes that actually happen, have become much more of a ceremony, let's say, a ceremony of the German economy, where basically, both capital, the state, and the workers have agreed that at regular intervals, we need to have some kind of adjustment to allow reproduction of the working class to happen, and to even happen, right? Because at some point they just get so poor that they can't anymore, and then at some point their productivity really goes down. So that's why there is an agreement there. It's an agreement between all the actors to say, that the union is how we do that. And then sometimes there is a strike, like for example with Deutsche Bahn last year, there were a lot of strikes and a lot of negotiations, and in the end there is a solution to be found there. It does give you as a worker objectively much more protection from the, let's say, the Willkürlichkeit, the randomness of capitalist impulses. Your boss cannot just do anything they want with you here. They cannot pay you anything they want. They cannot just fire you easily. All granted, right? But to think that this is like that this is then still, in some way great. It is not. People are fucked up here also.
That's what the movies told me in the 80s, that you people were fucked up.
The crowds, yeah. What's
this
guy called in
Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber, yes, exactly.
His brother Simon Gruber.
He's played by a British with.
Well,
yeah, and he's not even supposed to be West German. He was East German, right?
He's from the GDR, and his German is atrocious.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he was supposed to be German. It didn't matter. He was just a bad guy from somewhere in Europe, and that's like all that mattered to me.
Yeah.
Like yippee-ki-yay, right? It's like
exactly.
The Cold War was a special time for me. Pascal tries to act like it didn't happen for him, but he was out there trying to fight like Apollo Creed during Rocky IV as well.
Yeah,
I have to say that I'm still like, it's almost a shame, but I have to say that one of my favorite action movies of the 80s is still Red Dawn. I cannot. That movie just
Red Dawn.
That movie might be propagandic perfection. There's two movies that are propagandic perfection.
It's
Star Wars and Red Dawn.
Yeah.
It's the same as Joseph Goebbels said about Battleship Potemkin, that everyone who saw that movie is a communist for a couple of hours. I think after Red Dawn, everyone is a partisan for a couple of hours. Like, go America!
The scene that gets me every time is when they go visit their fathers.
Yeah, in the
labor
concentration camp. Yeah,
and they've murdered all their moms. And they're like, "Where's mom?" And the dad just looks away because he can't cry. He tells Charlie Sheen and Patrick Swayze not to cry because they're men. And then he yells out as they walk away, "Avenge me!" Just thinking about it.
yeah, it's insanely effective.
Oh my
And
god!
I also love the one-liners. This is against the Geneva Convention. Never heard of it. Boom. When they shoot the Russian prisoners of war, because if Americans shoot Russian prisoners of war, that's okay.
When they're
haven't
sitting there
seen it. I
singing the
need to see
national anthem as they mow them all down,
Yeah.
and you're just like, "Oh man!" And then the one kid's dad is Red Dawn, best piece of that in Star Wars. There's no better pieces of propaganda than those two films.
What's Star Wars propaganda for?
I mean, originally George Lucas made it to be his allegory for the Vietnam War, using images of kind of Nazi Germany and stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm.
The original
Even the
artwork
name, yeah.
was a lot more true to World War II iconography.
Right.
The
Nazis.
helmet of Darth
They
Vader
look
is
like
also
fascists.
a
Yeah.
play
Yeah,
on,
and his whole
helmet.
and by the time he got around to doing the prequels, he wanted to tell a different story of how a country would become fascist.
Yeah. Basically, the democratic
Yeah.
turn to totalitarianism. Yeah.
But I think the prequels got way too wordy and
They're
just too much with
stupid.
CGI. But if you look at the original film, which wasn't supposed to have a sequel,
right.
that original film is a story of a technologically advanced superpower that is very oppressive, being overtaken by a small band of kind of unsophisticated rebels.
Right. Yeah, the best thing that got back to those roots was Andor. Like, I watched the first season.
I heard about that.
I really loved it. It was really, like, all the other Star Wars stuff since then is just, not my thing. But
I don't have Disney Plus, so I miss it all.
Yeah, Andor, I really like.
I heard Andor.
That got me goosebumps. At some
The Mandalorian for me was like, I watched The Mandalorian first 2 seasons. I was like, this is good.
Yeah, this was also not
I
bad.
haven't
Yeah,
seen
true.
any of it. I'm sorry.
You don't watch any of it?
No. I'm
Do you
kind
hate
of like
freedom?
I do.
I do hate freedom. We don't want freedom. We want a
Oh
planned
my
economy. A planned economy in which everybody does what he's told. That's what we want.
See that we saw what happened with that. One of the things, my friend, I don't know if you ever had him on your show, Michael Harris. He'd probably be easy to get on because if he's not in Europe, he's in Asia, which is a better timeline to deal with than the time frame we're dealing with. But in his book, Welcome to the Rebellion, about
I saw that episode. I saw that episode of yours. Yeah, I saw that. I know.
One thing he talks about is Star Wars actually has poverty within the storyline. And if you think about some of the characters from Star Wars that we love, Luke and Han Solo, they all come from poverty. They come from slavery, literally.
Smugglers and
slavery. And so the Outer Rim is where this kind of netherworld or the ghetto of the universe exists. And one of the things he says in the books is like, even when they defeat the Empire, they never address the poverty in the outer rims, which, again, I think you can use these conversations to talk to people about like real world politics. Don't use a Marvel movie.
No.
Use something like this. Pascal and Robert.
I saw the Han Solo movie, and I always found it interesting that they were both slaves. I didn't know that at first.
Yeah. They Han Solo comes from a slave colony. George Lucas wrote backstories for all these people.
Right.
He's published his scripts in different phases, so you can see that a lot of characters that even you get in the prequels were written about initially. That's why there's like episode 4. It starts at 4 because he had all these ideas first. Sorry.
Interesting. No, great. I'm a Star Wars fan, so I enjoyed that. Yeah, very nice.
Well, your partner is not, and that's fucked up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I can just use this cam so you don't see him anymore.
Everybody said Andor is really good. Again, I haven't seen Andor.
Oh yeah, if you do, let me know like how you liked it. There is one scene where this guy, the Swedish guy, what's his name? I forgot this.
Oh, the actor guy.
Söström.
I
one
know,
of the
know
actors
exactly who you're talking about.
where
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he's like the rebel leader, and he's being told like, we are sacrificing everything. Like, what have you sacrificed? And then he starts this monologue, which is like it just dropped my jaw. It was amazing, and the way he acted that. So yeah, it's really worth watching, even for a non-Star Wars fan, which my wife is, and she loved it too. So
Maybe I should check out Andor.
yes, you should.
I think the new stuff you can watch without knowing.
Yes,
That's
that's how they build it.
Jedi
That's how
side.
they build it. That's the good thing and the
Yeah.
bad thing about it. You know.
You don't need
Yeah.
you don't need to know who Han Solo is and stuff like that.
Right.
I've seen the old movies. I've seen all of the prequels, but I have seen none of the sequels. And right now, if I hear the music, I'm already like, this is like, it's like, fuck off. I'm so fed up with it. Like that in the MCU can just fuck right off.
I don't. Yeah, look again. I don't have a Disney Plus, but there's a really cool place here in Mexico in Tijuana. This filmmaker has this cafe,
Mhm.
and he turned an old movie theater into a cafe. And behind the cafe is a really big amphitheater, and he was showing all the Deadpool movies for free
Oh, nice.
Nice.
and
one.
projecting them on the wall. But it was in Spanish.
Hmm.
My Spanish is a little bit better than my German.
Oh,
So, so I did watch some of the new Deadpool in Spanish, and even barely understanding the language, it was pretty funny.
yeah. They're good. They're good.
But they are also like not the proper MCU. The proper MCU is this liberal fever dream.
Until Endgame, everything was fine. I was happy
Woke,
with the
woke,
MCU.
woke,
But
woke.
So
That's true,
you didn't
yes.
watch. It's a good Marvel one to watch. I think if you want to have conversations about things like open borders and be serious about it, is the Falcon and Winter Soldier.
the show,
Yeah.
I watched that
haven't
and I
seen it.
forgot it like immediately. There was like one scene that was so woke, I remember that scene where he goes to his, I don't know, his brother or his uncle or so, and he talks to him, and they're talking about, the fate of the black man in this democracy.
They
blah, blah.
they went too deep
And-
with. So, for those that don't know, there was I wouldn't even say alternate universe. So Captain America gets frozen, right, for a gajillion years, and during that time, they tried to work the super soldier serum out on some black soldiers. So there was a storyline written in the '90s, I think, and I think Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote one of them too, about
really?
a black
Okay.
Captain America
Yeah.
that, like most black people, came back home and got shit on.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting story, I guess. So they tried to work that in, and there was also a character from, I think, Captain America. That was a very small character called the Flag Smasher.
I like the name.
And so what they did was they took that character and made it a bunch of people. So when Thanos snaps, half of humanity dies, right? So that means that, for example, Israel loses a bulk of its workforce.
Mhm.
Maybe they have to deal with Palestinians in a whole different way, because that's like, hey, we need labor because we just literally lost half of our population.
Mhm.
So what was happening was borders just became open because half of the people died.
Right.
So when Tony Stark for Endgame does the snap and everybody comes back, all of those relations politically went back to being fraught. So the Flag Smashers are a group of people that
the
stole-
terrorists basically in the show, right?
Terrorists.
Yeah.
They become
Terrorists,
the
yeah.
sad part is they were interesting and then they become Al Qaeda.
Yeah, in the
But,
end, they're just boring. Exactly. That's why.
That's why I got kind of like towards the end it got sad. But the idea of that was kind of interesting. What would happen if catastrophe hit, COVID, for example, and foreign relations change and borders become more open, and you have all these people that grew up in that world, and then one day everybody comes back. So the Flag Smashers were like, no, we want the world that we lived in, where there were no borders and all this racism didn't exist.
right.
That was the whole thing. And then
That's coming back, right? So that's now you found your new guilty group.
yeah.
You found your new immigrants.
Yeah.
They are the snappers, the ones that came after you snap, yeah.
Me and Kuba did a whole show about that because we both thought that premise was an interesting premise, and
Yes,
then
I
they
agree.
just liberaled all over it. It was like liberal.
But I love how you can have conversations about this, because I always keep telling people that I think that Black Panther is the saddest of the Marvel movies because the hero gets killed in the end. And everybody's looking at me like, what? Black Panther dies? No, Killmonger dies.
Oh man, there's so many black people that they loved Killmonger so much because his character does die.
Right.
That the comics wrote him back in.
Oh, interesting.
And if you watch the What If series that Marvel did, where it's the Watcher watches all the timelines, there's a What If series on what if Killmonger did kill T'Challa and became Black Panther.
And of course, it's terrible dictatorship, blah blah blah.
That's what he wanted. I mean,
that was like that thing about this movie which was actually interesting, was that everybody knows, like, or we at least, we know quite a lot about what black people have to go through or had to go through in the past in the US. And then this movie tries to allure to this by this guy actually saying, yeah, okay, we're going to do something against that now. We're taking that in our hands. And you're like, yes. And then at the same time, then you can really feel how Disney felt like, yeah, but everybody will side with him. So we kind of need to make him like this evil dictator, and I don't know, hit his mom or something. What he did in the end, and it's like that's how then everybody is like, yeah, okay, he's a bad guy, yeah, okay. But in the end, it was like, yeah, shit, he should have been, yeah. He was the hero.
I mean, the sad thing is, kind of this conversation that we're having, a lot of these shows to be kind of feed into alt-right narratives.
Yeah.
Especially the superhero stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, maybe it's stuff for another show, but that's also some fascist ideals flying around in capes, for sure.
Yeah. Really?
I think the one that took it serious but failed to make proper movies out of it was Zack Snyder, because his Superman is a fascist. And he's completely
his Batman is a fascist.
His Batman,
Superman is a liberal. His Batman is a fascist. Exactly.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck is a fascist.
No, like the
Bruce Wayne's Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, of course, not Ben Affleck himself.
Yeah, no, but that's I think this was one of the most interesting depictions of Batman in quite some time. Unfortunately, the movie kind of like fell apart in the end, but that's okay.
Is that Batman versus Superman? I've never seen that movie. The Batman.
It's a very interesting failure.
To be fair, it's also not Zack Snyder's imagination. It was Frank Miller, and Frank Miller writes Batman, and Batman Returns, he writes him as a fascist. Like, he's a complete fascist psychopath. That's what he is. And he just, I mean, ultimately, if you think about what Batman is doing, like in the comics, kind of, it's not far off. Yeah. Democracy is not doing it for us. The cops are not doing it for us. So I'm going to do it.
So maybe let's cripple poor people for the better of the American society.
But Batman is the epitome of the poor man's revenge story, right? It's like the city needs me. Yes. I don't know, man. You're kind of beating shit out of these guys.
But I also to be fair, the modern Batman, the incarnations after the 80s, it became much less unemployed people and much more like psychologically broken people, right? Yeah. That's like a big thing in Batman, right? They are all psychopaths. All these guys that he fights are complete psychopaths, which is like completely different if you watch Spider-Man or read Spider-Man comics. It wasn't like this.
Well, but does it play into a crime? Look, this is kind of something that happens everywhere. The crime narrative and true crime is extremely popular here in the States. I'm assuming it's somewhat popular where you guys are as well. When we think about true crime, it does play into the Batman story that you're talking about, where these things happen to people because there are truly disturbed individuals that commit these disturbing acts. And these things do happen, but that trickles down to the way you understand maybe like smash and grab robberies as well. Like that was televised so much in the West that in California, a law that we had put into place in 2014, 10 years ago, to say, let's raise the amount for grand larceny because we're locking too many people up and our prisons are getting overcrowded.
We have some asylums left.
Yeah. And called the Homeless Reduction and Rehabilitation Act to lock people up for longer periods of time for stealing.
I can latch on to this because we were talking about how liberalism fails to address the contradictions of capitalism. As I said, I spent a lot of time in Greece, and there it's really funny because while they have a huge problem with wildfires every year, they let go of 5,000 fire people, and then hired 15,000 policemen. So that's their priority. And you're like, how is that a priority? How do you sell that to your general population? And it's pretty simple, because you don't hire 15,000 policemen for policing street crime. That's an army of policemen you're hiring there. But what they're doing in the state TV is that every itty bitty nitty little crime gets reported on for hours. I remember that we were sitting and we were preparing something, and the TV was just in the background. A kid got run over in a hit and run accident. Like as awful as this is like this in the newspaper in Germany. Yeah, and maybe it's in the local part of the TV news. It's like, kid hit and run accident. How bad? They reported on that for 5 hours straight. Like, to make sure that everybody knows that there are bad people out there and that we need more police to take care of this problem. And this is how they sell the fact that this police was in fact hired to crack down on poverty, not on street crime. They were not gonna. These 15,000 people are not gonna investigate the hit and run. They're gonna crack down on people who are being evicted forcibly from their homes, etc.
I mean, ultimately, that's also coming back to how to deal with this insanely great society that we are living in. Is if there are people that are doing crime, it cannot be that there are reasons that they are maybe even rational reasons for them doing crime because of the situation that they're being put in. No, it has to be pathologized. They are somehow sick. They are somehow crazy,
not fit for participation in society.
Exactly. That's how they uphold their idealisms of what this society is, as if this society does not only foster crime, but actually like the people need it sometimes, to get ahead somehow.
Some people just like being bad.
No, of course. Let's not talk about us here.
But this, I love this because this is a common narrative, and this is also something where the state can make itself more necessary, or show its necessity, and it's the necessity of force. Like, for example, if you go to Chris Nolan's Batman and you go to The Dark Knight, and some people just want to watch the world burn, like this constant talking about how there are evil people who have no agenda but to hate you and to make everything bad for you, which is like purest fiction. No criminal I have ever seen had the purpose of being a criminal. Oh, I want to be a criminal when I grow up. Like this just does not happen, but it's still a narrative. It's the same
you never met my dad.
But it's the same with the immigrants. Like, if you, for example, I lived in Kreuzberg for over 10 years, and there's a Görlitzer Park, and Görlitzer Park is full with immigrant dealers, like mostly party drugs. Yeah. And everybody was like, oh, they're so bad. Why are they there? And I was like, because they sell stuff there. You know what's behind the Görlitzer Park? Behind Görlitzer Park is the party mile of Berlin. Yeah. They are at the Görlitzer Park not because they think, oh, fucking fancy green park, I can.
We want to break the German children. We want.
Yeah, no, it's because they have like an insane turnaround to the fucking tourists just 100 meters north. Like, this is
it's a market.
Yeah. Yep. They're trying to make a living. That's what they're doing, and they're trying to make a living in a way that I also kind of disagree with, but. They're just trying to make a living. They're not there to kind of like warp German society to a like an evil place.
But this is then how this is put, and then it can be put on to your anti-immigrant propaganda, and it makes a lot of sense to people that are like, yeah, look, all the black guys that come from North Africa here, they are all drug dealers. So, and that's how these judgments are being spoken. Yeah, that's how this happens.
Pascal, you a North African drug dealer?
No.
They have a name for that fucking police here. They call them Nafris.
That's like the N
North Africans, Nafris. Yeah,
Nafris. Yeah, it's an abbreviation.
Yeah.
A Nafri.
It's a police term, by the way. I'm not saying like just as what the racist guys and them. It's a police term.
Word.
Yeah.
Do you remember The Wire, where they also had a term for tall, aggressive black male? What was it again?
Homies from the hood.
I never saw The Wire.
I watched The
I
Wire.
know, yeah,
No,
no.
not the wire now. We already talked a lot of pop culture. Like this guy goes off on the wire. Don't.
Oh no, Ray Reid goes. He loves The Wire. He
Yeah.
always has a wire analogy.
Yeah, shout out to him, by the way.
So Pascal, in closing, what do you have to say?
Barring the divergence into pop culture, we've learned a lot about how the rise of the reactionary right. One thing I like is that no one here said it's fascism, right? No, we all agree that just saying fascism is coming is very reductive, very facile, and it very much deters away from a more clear understanding of all the things that are in play. But one thing that we all agree with is that the liberals don't have an answer for this problem, and the so-called dialectical materialists left, whether you want to call them socialists, communists, or anarchists, doesn't seem to be up for the part either, because we don't seem to find a way to get through these liberals so we can challenge these right-wing forces either. And we're still stuck in having a crisis of capitalism giving birth to these kind of right-wing ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yep, nothing to add there. That's exactly how gloomy and dark I wanted to end this episode.
Thank you,
but
guys.
Seriously.
Thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for joining us. It was a long time in the works to get this episode back. I think we had you guys on 3 years ago, first time.
Yeah. We had some crossovers. Check them out. They are still fun today.
Yeah.
So people still watch them in our in our fan base. So.
I'm so glad that we're able to do stuff like this. I'm again back to goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps again. The fact that
me too. Stop it.
No, this. I think this is cool, especially it's like the core
Absolutely.
of us, me and Pascal and Daniel and Nadim. So thank you guys so much. Maybe I got to have you guys on for another one of the metal shows that we.
I was just gonna say, because when you were talking about Waco, I just immediately led Freedom Ring with a shotgun blast.
Oh, this will make you feel real funny. So the drummer from that record, Chris Contos, is a friend.
Yes. No.
And he texted me 2 nights ago, Thursday night, and he goes, "Are you on the guest list for Sunday?" I said, "Guest list for Sunday." I was like, "Where are you?" "Oh, we're gonna be in Mexico City." I was like, because I can't drive. I gotta fly there. I don't have money to fly there right now.
Mhm.
So I was like, I gotta miss it. He's like, "Well, if you can get there, I'll put you on the list." So I'm hurt that I can't watch, Contos.
One
play
of the
with,
greatest
Forbidden.
riffs in modern metal history.
Yes, I wish I could play it on the way out. Sadly, I cannot, because I don't want the stream to get taken down because of that. But yes, it is, and to know one of the dopest drum fills, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be around those dudes. But thank you guys. Thank you, Pascal. Everybody watching, have a great rest of your weekend. We'll be back Tuesday to discuss Who Owns Democracy with Charles Derber. Very interesting book. What do you guys have planned for your next show?
We just did a big one on anti-Semitism. Basically defined what that is, because there's a lot of confusion around. This is
Especially
in
in
German,
Germany.
but let's talk about the English ones. Like all the people that are listening here, please go to our channel and check out our recent series on Hezbollah. We have Aurélie Daher. She's the author of this book, and these episodes are all in English. So these are our most recent English shows. I think 4 episodes. There's another 5th one coming, and we'll give you a good insight into what Hezbollah is and also what this conflict is about. So check that out, please.
And you can translate what they say with AI tools. Use AI for some.
Yes, I'm looking into that. Actually, yes, we are about to
use AI
translate
for
that.
good people. There's free translation tools. You can get a transcript and translation.
Right.
It's easier
Right.
than you think.
Right. Yeah. We'll do.
So thank you guys. And
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
we
Pascal.
are
Out.
peace.